In this fourth grade math video, we are going to be talking about how to do division in general, but specifically we're going to make sure we go over the steps of how to do long division. We're going to do plenty of examples to make sure you know what you need to do to divide any number by one digit. And in fact, that's our objective as the student. I can divide anything I want by one-digit numbers because I'll stay organized and follow the steps, and I'll make sure my answers are reasonable. So those are some things we're going to discuss. A list of topics is we're going to talk about in general how to do long division to start off. I'm going to start off with some modeling, showing you how to use base 10 blocks, and then we're going to turn that into long division. I'm going to show you how to check your answers to make sure you know that they're correct. I'm also going to show you how to estimate. This skill of estimating can be very, very powerful because it gives you a ballpark number in your head to know if your answers are reasonable. And that way you can also learn how to be a problem solver on your own to make predictions. We're then going to talk about how to do even bigger numbers, dividing by one number. So that's what I mean when I say anything by one-digit numbers. Questions like 3,125,426. I'm not sure if I said that as the same as I was writing it, but we say that divided by, 4. We'll talk about how to do anything divided by a number, but the truth is we may not do any this big because that would take a little while, but I'm going to show you the process that you'll just do over and over again. All right, so let's get in there. Let's start by reminding you how to do division with models, meaning those base 10 blocks. So let's say you had the question 72 divided by 5. Remember what that means. 72 is your dividend, 5 is your divisor. In other words, 5 is the number of equal groups that you need to break 72 up into. So we're going to cut 72 up into 5 groups. 1, 2, all right, I didn't quite do that accurately. But we're going to go ahead and do this with base 10 blocks. So imagine this is a 10 stick, this is another one. So we're going to go to 70. So we're up to 40, 50, 60, 70. And then go ahead and draw it 72. So we'll make it 72. So this is my low-tech visual base 10 blocks. So we're going to take 72 and we're going to spread it out into 5 groups. So I have my 5 groups ready, and so we're going to start spreading it out. And we're going to start with the 10s. And you'll notice we're going to put a 10 in each one because we can fit a 10 in each one. How many 10s have we used total? I don't know. Let's count. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. We used up 50, but we have 70. We have 7 10 sticks, but we don't have enough to do another lap. We only have enough for 2 more, but remember, when you divide, you break them into equal groups. So those 2 leftover sticks, okay, let's say these are those 2. Those 2 that are left over, we have to now convert them into 1s. In other words, we're going to turn this 10 stick into 10. So that 10 stick is going to turn into 10 ones, and we're going to do the same thing to the other one also. So you'll notice, if you count, I'll have 20 ones right here. So if you remember, we have 20 ones right here. We already had 2, so grand total, we currently have 22 ones is what we're dealing with, because that's what we still need to spread out. So we're going to take 22 ones, and we're going to spread them out evenly until we can't add any more. That's what we're going to do. Okay, so count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you're going to keep going until you get up to somewhere near 22. So currently I'm at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and I'm at 20, and I would like to do another lap, but I think you already know another lap will be at 25. But we only have 22 ones to spread out, so I don't have enough room for that other lap. So remember, I put 20 ones out here, which means left over, I have 2 of them that have no group to go to. So I have a remainder of 2. That means there is a remainder of 2. So that means you'll count how much is in each group. So in one group we have 14, and you'll notice all the groups are the same. That's the whole point, break them into equal groups. So that means the answer to this question is 14 with a remainder of 2. Now, I know for the higher level grades you have another way of slightly doing this, but we're focusing on how to do this the basic way, of long division and with remainders. So 72 divided by 5 is 14 with a remainder of 2. Now, before I talk about how to check your answer, I now want to show you how to do the same question with long division. But first I'm going to show you the steps to long division, but then we're going to do the same question with long division, and I'm going to show you how to check your answer. But what I also want to show, after that I will, but I also want to show you how is long division just like what we just did. There's going to be some common steps. Okay, so let's write out 72 divided by 5. Because you're dividing by 5, that's the one that goes on the outside. The steps that you need to know for long division are divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. And in class, we talked about division man. Maybe your class talked about that too, or maybe it's just a way to think about it. If you draw a picture of division man, his face and his body tell you what steps to do. The first thing you do each round is divide, and then you're going to multiply, then you're going to subtract, and then when you're all done, you're going to bring it down. And if you have a number to bring down, if you do have a number to bring down, you're going to do it again if necessary. Do another round. And I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. So divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. And then repeat if necessary. Alright, when we say divide, we mean go ahead and divide the first number on the left by 5. 5 fits into 7 one time, because if you were to count by 5s, you get 5, 10, 15. Oh, you'll notice these are already too big. So 5 fits into 7 one time. That was just one time. So we were going to say 5 fits into 7 one time. Now, I know there's a remainder, but it still fits one time. The second step is multiply. So you're going to do 1 times 5, and 1 times 5 gives you 5. So again, you did 5 goes into 7 one time. And then once you do it within one time, you did 1 times 5, and that gave you 5. Okay, so that was step 2, multiply. Step 3 was subtract. So we're going to subtract those. 7 minus 5 is 2. 7 minus 5 is 2. Now, I want to make sure we're clear real fast. To give you a connection of what that 2 actually represents. This 2 actually means something. Let's go back to our model example. Remember when we were spreading these out into equal groups with our tens? You'll remember we had 2 tens that didn't have a group. So we had a leftover of 2 tens. That's actually what this means right here. This is saying once you've split up your tens into groups of 5, into 5 groups, you have 2 of them left over. That's the same thing that happened when we were doing it the visual way. We had 2 tens left over that we had to turn into 1s. And so that's what we're going to do now with long division. But our next step after subtract was bring down. So we're going to bring down that 2. So now that we have a new number, we're going to ask ourselves, before it was 5 going into 7, and we took care of that, we had a remainder of 2. But now it's 5 going into 22. How many times does 5 go into 22? And that's where you're going to need to count by 5s like we already said. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. You'll notice, 25 is too big. It's not 25. 20 can fit though. How many times was that? That was 4 times. So you're going to say 5 goes into 22 4 times. So remember, when that 4 though, where that 4 goes is directly over the last digit of whatever you just asked yourself. You just asked yourself, how many times is 5 going to 22? So that 4 goes directly above, straight above it. So you're going to put a 4 right there. 5 goes into 22 4 times. Oh, I guess I should have pointed out real fast. When we're at the bring down stage, because we brought down a new number that we can keep dividing by 5, that's why we're going to do another round. We're going to keep going. So that, and we have a space to fill still. So that's why I said 5 goes into 22 4 times. So we've started over step 1, divide. Now we're back to step 2, which is multiply. 4, just the 4, not the 14. 4 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. And that's what goes here. And in other words, when we were counting by 5s earlier, 20 was the number we had to stop at because we couldn't get to 25. It wouldn't fit inside of 22. So that's where that 20 is coming from. Step 3 was to subtract. 2 minus 0 was 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. So we have a remainder of 2. So 5 goes into 22. 5 goes into 22 4 times. And then you'll multiply that so you can subtract your remainder. So again, 5 goes into 22 4 times with a remainder of 2. That's where these numbers came from. And now that you have nothing else to drop down, you're done. That makes that your remainder. So you're going to say that you have 14 with a remainder of 2. And if you'll remember, that's the same answer we got in the last question. We had 14 with a remainder of 2 because we spread out our 10s. We had 2 left over, which is what we had right here, the 2 left over. We combined it with the 1s, and look, 22 right here, 22 1s, but that's what we also had right here. We had 22 1s. So long division is the visual way. It's just a way with usually a lot faster, and it's going to take you a lot less time, because what if this was a really, really big number? It would take you forever trying to do it visually. So those are the basic steps of long division. Now, I told you I would also tell you how to check yourself. The way you check your answers. And don't worry, we're going to do plenty of examples of long division in this video. I'm going to add plenty more towards the end. But I want to make sure we're talking about overall division first. In order to check yourself, you're going to use your fact family. So I'm going to do a quick, easy example. Let's say you had 16 divided by 2, and 16 divided by 2 is 8. So you could check that by, if you think it's 8, you could check that by saying, well, 2 times 8, does that equal 16? And you'll know that 2 times 8 does equal 16. So because 2 times 8 does equal 16, you know that 8 is definitely the answer to your division problem. Remember, those are things that are called being in the same fact family. That concept is what we're going to use here also. So to check our answer, so you're going to do 5 times 14, and if you don't know what that is off the top of your head, you can do 14 times 5, 5 times 4 is 20, carry the 2, 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7, so 70. So 5 times 14 is 70. So we could say, all right, we know that this is 70. Well, hey, that's not 72. But you'll remember, we had that remainder. So it goes into it 14 times with 2 left over. So you got to remember to add that 2 that's left over. So 70 plus 2, and that gives you 72. Then you have to compare. Was this the same number as this? And in this case it is, so you know that that is your correct answer. So if you want to go faster next time, if you already know you need to add it, you can say 5 times 14, then add 2, and that should equal 72. And because it does equal 72, it checks out. We know we're good to go because 5 times 14 was 70, and then plus 2 was 72. That's how we check our answers. So don't be shy about checking them. So I've shown you how to check your answers. I may not, for the sake of time in this video, I may not check every single question, but I'll at least check maybe one more. So now let's talk about estimating with division. That way you can predict how to predict big questions. You already have an idea what the number is going to be. When you estimate with division, it's kind of similar to when we were estimating with multiplication. When we were estimating with multiplication, we generally were telling everyone to round your two numbers first to whatever their highest place value was, and then multiply them. Now, yes, there's different ways to estimate, but we were just kind of showing one route of doing it. So you can, with division, you can also estimate. And we want to know how to do this for like big, scary questions that we might not know or want to do by hand very easily, or at least just to estimate, to have a ballpark figure. For example, let's say you had 1,482 divided by 3. If you wanted to at least get a quick ballpark answer, ballpark meaning in the right area, not exact but close, you're gonna need a round. We're not going to round the 3, but we can round this number. You notice 3 doesn't go into 1, and 3 doesn't go in anything near 1 either, though. So we don't want to round 1 up to a 3 because that would be 3,000. That's rounding way too much, and it's going to throw off our answer. We want a number that's still near this number. So let's look at 2 digits instead of 1. Is there a number near 14 that 3 can go into? And you can check. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. I think we found it. The one near 14 is 15. So what we're going to do is we're going to round 1482, 1,482. We're going to round that whole number to 1, 5, and then just fill in the rest with zeros. So 1,500 or 1,500. This is pretty darn close to that one. They are pretty close, but we're going to use this number because this number is a lot easier to compute, and here's why. We know that 3 can go into 15. We just did that. And we also know how many times 3 can go into 15. So this is good for us. So we're going to picture in our head, or write it down, 15 divided by 3. In the beginning you'll need to write these down, but at some point you might be able to do them in your head. 15 divided by 3. Well, you know that 15 divided by 3 is 5. And here's the best part. Those two zeros that we just now temporarily ignored, all we got to do is put them back on our answer. So we said 5. So put on those 2 zeros. So our answer is 500. And so what we did is we turned it into a compatible number. We changed 1,482 to a number that we knew 3 goes into because we know 3 goes into 15. And when you divide into multiples of 10 or 100 or 1,000, all you got to do is ignore those zeros at first, but then put those zeros back on. And so when you ignore them at first, you'll just divide the question inside of it, but then you'll put them back on. So 1,500 is the same as 500. I'm sorry, divided by 3 is 500. Because 15 divided by 3 is 5, put those 2 zeros on. Let's do one more with estimating. Because when you estimate, when you make a ballpark estimate, you know what's reasonable for your answer. So that's one of the ways to check yourself, is to make sure the real answer is close to that. And I just checked with a calculator. If I did this exact question in a calculator, I get 494. Well, you know what? 494 is really close to 500, so that was a really good estimation. This is a powerful technique. If you think you can estimate this one all by yourself, go ahead and pause and give this one a shot. Now, if you still have a little bit of trouble, that's okay. Let's count by sevens to look for a number that goes near. I wouldn't say turn the 6 into 700, because if you were to turn the 6 into a 700, you're rounding quite a bit to change everything else. So let's see if we can find something even closer. A number that 7 go into. So let's check the 2 digits. Let's look for something 7 goes into near 64. So count by sevens, 7, 14, 21, 28. So this is a good time to know that knowing your times tables can be very, very helpful. So 56, and keep going. 56, 63, 70. Oh, I've gone plenty far because we're looking for a number near 64. So look for one of these numbers that is near 64, and you'll notice 63 is really close to 64. So that is what we're going to round this to. We're going to round 64. We're going to change it to a 63, and remember that 2 is just going to become a 0. So 630, because 630 is pretty close to 642. Remember, before we were talking about changing this to 700, that was really far away compared to just changing it to 630. And we chose 630 because 7 goes into 63 really easy. So they're compatible numbers. So again, we're going to just look at the basic question side of it. We're going to do 63 divided by 7. And we know that 63 divided by 7, if we count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. 7 goes into 63 9 times. So we're going to put a 9 here. And then remember that 0 we temporarily ignored? Well, that 0 just shows back up. So 90. The answer to this question is about 90. 7 goes into 642 about 90 times. And if you check that exactly with a calculator, not that I want you using calculators, but if you use long division to check it, you'll get 91 and with the remainder. So this is really, really close to the exact answer of 91 with the remainder. That is pretty good. So this is a good estimate. And that's what we're talking about when we say estimating. So in the beginning of a question, when you get good at this, you can kind of do this quickly, even in your head when you get really good at it. But in the beginning, just write it down. But then that's how you know if that's one of the ways to know if your answers are reasonable. So when I talked about knowing if your answer is reasonable, that's how. If we were to do long division with this question, which in fact we will later in this video, I'll come back to this question, you're going to see it's going to be an answer really close to 90. And so that's how we're going to know that it's reasonable. Let's do another long division one. We're going to do long division. 6 goes into 6 one time. It can fit one time. 1 times 6 is 6. We're going to subtract that and get 0, and that's okay. We're now going to bring down the fourth step of bring down the 8. And now we're going to continue. Now that we have a new number down here, we're to continue. 6 goes into 8. It can fit into 8 one time. Because remember, if we count by 6s, we know that this is too big for 8. So 12 is out, but 6 fits into 8. And it fits into it one time. 1 times 6 is 6. So basically we're just finding our remainder. There's nothing else to bring down, so that is our remainder. So 11 times with the remainder of 2. That's how many times 6 goes into 68. And remember, you can check yourself by doing 6 times 11, and then once you've done that, add 2, and you'll notice you will get 68. That's how you know it's the answer. Let's try this one, long division style. And if you think you already know how to do this one, hit pause and give it a shot. You'll notice in this example we have 3 numbers, whereas in the last long division we did, we only had 2 numbers. And so when you have 2 numbers, you'll notice you'll be subtracting twice. So when you have 3 numbers, you can do the same thing, you're just going to end up subtracting 3 times. So if you're not sure how to divide into 3 numbers yet, let's do it. 5 goes into 3, not at all. It can't fit at all because 5, 10, 15, none of those fit inside of 3. So 5 goes into 3 0 times. So when that happens, rather than don't bother doing this and bring down the 5. And bring down that 5. That's a lot of work. So just do this. Go straight to 35. So now let's ask yourself, how many times can 5 go into 35? And now I'm only going to say skip to the next number and do 2 digits at once when it's a 0 for the first one. So 5 cannot go into 3, so we're just going to check 35. And 5 can go into 35 7 times. 7 times 5 is 35. Oh, and that's because 5 goes into 35 perfectly with no remainder. That's why you see no remainder here. So now let's bring down the 1. So 5 can go into 1. A lot of people want to just say remainder of 1. A lot of people want to say 7 times the remainder of 1, but that's not true because you'll notice we still have a space to fill right here. So we need to fill that space, and we know that because we're staying lined up. So 5 goes into 1. 5 cannot fit into 1, so 5 goes into 1 0 times. Then you would do 0 times 5 is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1, and now that's your remainder. Remainder of 1. So, but notice it's not 7, it's 70. So the final answer is 70 with the remainder of 1. That was the answer to this question. And I mentioned we were going to be subtracting 3 times, usually when there's 3 digits, but we didn't in this case because the first one it didn't go into 3. It was just 0 for the first one, so we didn't have as many subtraction steps. You would have if you had done what I mentioned, where you put a 0 here, subtract, get a 3. That would have been why you would have had 3 subtractions. Let's do another one. Let's do 496 divided by 3. Okay, long division. 3 goes into 4. Remember, just checking the first number first. 3 goes into 4. It fits 1 time. And if you're not sure, I'll write a few of them out here to refer to. Remember, count by your 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. That's probably enough, and we'll write more if we need them in the question. So 3 can fit in a 4. 6 is too many. So, but 2 times is too many because it's 6. 1 time fits, though, because it's 3. So 3 can fit into 4 1 time. 1 times 3. 1 times 3 gives us 3. So now we're going to subtract. 4 minus 3 is 1. So now we need to bring down the 9. And we're going to keep going now. 3 goes into 19 how many times? Now we're dealing with 19. We're not talking about 4. We're not talking about 49. We're talking about 19. That's what we're talking about. 3 goes into 19. We notice it gets really, really close right here. So that's 18. It goes up to 18, and so that's 6 times. 3 goes into 19 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18, which is what we just said. We stopped at. 19 minus 18 is 1. Bring down your 6. Now we have a new number, so now we're dividing again. Every time we get a new number, you're going to see how many times does 3 go into it. Before it was 3 going into 19, now it's 3 going into 16. 3 goes into 16. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can't fit a 6th time, but we can go 5 times. So 3 goes into 16 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. We'll subtract. 16 minus 5 is 1. There's nothing else to bring down, so that is your remainder. So 165 with the remainder of 1. That is the answer to this question. Now, I think it's time for you to try some. Now, for each of these questions I'm going to write, I want you to hit pause. I want you to try them yourself. And it's okay if you're struggling. Just use a scratch paper. Try it yourself. And then hit play and see how you did. And practice on focusing on fixing even your mistakes. And if one of your mistakes was just your times tables, of like these numbers over here, that's okay because you need to practice your times tables. But don't let that bog you down. Make sure you know the overall steps as well. We want you to know your times tables because that'll make you faster. But at the same time, I want you to also know when did you make a times tables mistake or when did you just make a mistake with the steps. Go ahead and try this example. Hit pause and give it a shot. Alright, 6 can't go into 3, so technically we could put a 0 there, or we just move on over to 30. 6 goes into 30 5 times, so notice I'm putting the 5 over the last digit of the number we said. We said 30, so the 6 goes into 35 times, goes over the 0, the last digit of whatever we just said. 5 times 6 is 30. We're going to subtract and get 0. Now we need to bring down that last 5. Then we need to ask ourselves, that's not the remainder, because remember we have a gap to fill right here, so we have to ask ourselves, 6 goes into 5 how many times? And you'll notice 6 cannot fit into 5. 6 goes into 5 0 times. 0 times 6 is 0. Subtract, we get 5. So that means we have a remainder of 5. So 50, remainder of 5. And if you're not sure, you can check yourself. Do 6 times 50, and then add 5. And you'll notice you'll get 305. So great job if you got this one correct already. Go ahead and try this one. Hit pause and then check this one out. Okay, 4 goes into 5, because remember we're dividing by 4. 4 goes into 5, it can fit 1 time. Oh, I'm going to go write the 4s on the side to help you remember. So I went ahead and wrote a few of the multiples of 4 that may help you for this question. These are the things you should be keeping in mind in your head. Anyway, 4 fits into 5, we said 1 time. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtract, you get 1. Don't forget to bring down the 2. Now you have a new number, so now it's 12 you're dividing by 4. It is not 52, it is 12. So 12 divided by 4, 4 goes into 12, 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. And notice you're getting a 0 here because 4 goes into 12 perfectly. Because 4 goes into 12 perfectly, that's why 3 times 4 is 12 right here. So when we subtract, we didn't have a remainder for that piece. Okay, don't forget to bring down your next number. Next number was a 3 in this case, so we have to keep going. 4 goes into 3, so 3 divided by 4. And you'll notice 4 cannot fit into 3. Goes into 3 0 times. 0 times 4 is 0. We subtract, we get 3. Now that is your remainder. You know it's your remainder for 2 reasons. 1, you have nothing else to drop down, but also 4 cannot go into 3, so you know you made no mistakes. Let's say what if? Let's say you had a question like 9 is your remainder, and there was nothing else to bring down, so you should be done. But because 4 can go into 9, you must have had the wrong number before it, because you must have the wrong quotient, because you should not have a remainder that is bigger than what you're dividing by. So 130 with a remainder of 3. Great job if you got this one correct. Now, I told you we would even talk about how to divide any numbers. Now, I'm not going to do it with big digits because I can't physically fit them on my screen. It'll get messy. And it's just the same steps over and over again. But let's go ahead and divide this. 9,384 divided by 6. So if you think you can try this, hit pause and try this yourself first. Then hit play and check to see how you did. Worst case scenario, I want you at least to get out of this that we're doing the same steps over and over again. So we're going to first check how many times does 6 go into 9. And 6 can fit into 9 one time. We know that because if we list our 6's on the side, we'll be able to use that to help us. I just wrote a few of the multiples of 6 over on the side. So 6 goes into 9. It can fit one time. 1. So now remember, just like last time, after divide, we're going to multiply. 1 times 6 is 6. And after multiply, we're going to subtract. 9 minus 6 is 3. And then after subtract is bring down. So every single time you're going to check to see, you're going to divide, say how many times it goes into it, you're going to multiply and subtract that number you get, and then you're going to get a remainder. Then you're going to drop down a number if necessary, and keep going. So let's do it again. 6, but notice, this is the part that messes people up. It's not 6 and 93. It's very important. It's 6 and 33. 33. It's your new number. Whatever the new number you made, that's what you're still dividing by 6. You're always dividing by 6. So 6 goes into 33. Let's check. 24. No, we could fit another one. 36. Too big. So 30. 6 goes up to 30, and that would be 5 times. So that means 6 fits into 33 5 times because 5 times 6 is 30. We're going to subtract just like every time. We get 3. Time to bring down your next number, which is an 8. So now we're checking 38. So use your numbers over here. Remember, we're still dividing by 6. How many times does 6 go into 38? You'll notice right here, it can get up to 36. And that'll still fit inside of 38. So, and that is 6 times. So 6 times 6 is 36. Notice I put the 6 up there because I said it can fit 6 times. 38 minus 6 is 2. You got to bring down your next number now, which is a 4. So now you're doing 24. 24. I keep emphasizing that because that's what messes a lot of students up, is they forget whatever that new number was that you got on the bottom, that's what you are then supposed to divide by 6. So every time after you have that new number, after you drop down, every time you have that new number, then you keep starting all over again, dividing by 6. And you'll notice, last time we said 6 fits into 38 6 times. So you'll notice 6 times is directly over the 38. That's important. 6 goes into 33, we said 5 times. So notice the 5 is directly over the last digit of 33. The 6 is over the last digit of 38. So now that we now have a 24 down here, 6 goes into 24 how many times? Hopefully you're thinking 4 times, but it's going to go directly above it. That's where the 4 is going to go. So stay lined up and stay organized. Now, 4 times 6 is 24. We're going to subtract and get 0. So that means you have a remainder of 0. So the answer is exactly 1,564. That's how many times 6 can go into 9,384. So if you've hung in with me this whole time, I'm super impressed. You don't have to watch this whole thing at once, and I'm going to remind your parents of that as well. But I am going to now give you a few more practice questions from a little bit of everything with long division, and I want you to practice, because the main goal of this video is to practice long division. So I'm going to put up a few questions, and I may not explain them as in depth, but I'll at least show the steps that you can check yourself. So make sure you practice them, and you give yourself feedback and fix any mistakes you have so you can make an effort to learn from your mistakes. That way you're practicing with purpose. I don't want you to just do them. I want you to do them and then check yourself. Okay, so these are 4 more questions I want you to try, and then I want you to hit pause and try them, and then I want you to hit play and check yourself. That way you can figure out if you did them right, fantastic, but if you had a mistake, no big deal, but let's learn from that mistake. So hit pause and try all these questions on your own. I'm now going to go over each of these questions, but if you don't need help with the question I'm about to go over, you can fast forward to the next question so you can check that one. Now, as a helpful hint to make sure you're practicing your times tables, next to each of these questions, I went ahead and listed the multiples of the number we were dividing by to make it easier for us to refer to when we're checking how many times can go into it. Alright, so let's get this one started. 6 goes into 8 one time. 1 times 6 is 6. We're going to subtract and get a 2. Bring down your 9. So we have 29. Now it's 29 divided by 6. I'm emphasizing that because that's the one people get wrong a lot. 6 fits into 29. Let's check. 24. We can fit another one. Nope, we can't. We can't get the 30. So 24, and that was 4 times. So 6 goes into 29 4 times because 4 times 6 is 24. That's as far as we could fit the 6's into 29. 29 minus 4 is 5. We have nothing else to drop down, so 5 must be our remainder. So a remainder of 5. 14 remainder of 5. Great job, you got that one correct. Okay, checking this one now. 4 goes into 2 0 times. You could put a 0 there, or you can just move on and say 21. So I'm going to put a 0 there because technically there is one there, but just know I'm making this up. Let's say this was the answer. You would just say the answer is 65. You don't say 650 or anything like that. So if there's a 0 in front, it's no big deal. That's not the answer, by the way. So put a 0 there or skip that space. You now are asking yourself 21. 4 fits into 21 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. So it was a tight fit because there's only 1 left over. 21 minus 20 is 1. Bring down your next number, which is a 9. Now you start all over again. 4 goes into 19. Remember, you're always dividing by 4 in this example. 4 goes into 19. You'll notice it can get up to 16, so that's 4 times. 4 goes into 19, 4 times. 4 times 4, 4 times 4 is 16. So let's subtract. Nothing else to drop down, therefore that is our remainder. 54 times the remainder of 3. And remember, you can check yourself by doing 4 times 54, then add 3, and you'll notice you'll get 219. 863 divided by 7. 7 goes into 8. It can fit only once. Fits in 8 one time. 1 times 8 is 7. Subtract, we get 1. So you'll notice 7 goes in 8 one time with the remainder of 1. This was that remainder of 1. Bring down your next number. Now you're ready to start all over again. To keep dividing by 7, but now it's 16 we're interested in. It is not 86. It is not 863. It's just 16. 7 can fit into 16 2 times. 2 times 7 is 14. Go ahead and subtract, and you get 2. Don't forget to bring down your next number, which is a 3 in this case, and you'll be scanning. Which one of these is the biggest number that fits into 23? And you'll notice the biggest number that fits into 23 is 21. Well, that's 1, 2, 3 times. So it fits into 23 3 times. So now we're ready to subtract again. 23 minus 21 is 2. There's nothing else to bring down, so we're done. That's our remainder. Remainder of 2. So 123 with a remainder of 2. You'll notice I'm going kind of fast through some of these, but that's because it's you can go faster if you practice your times tables and you already know your basic math facts, your times tables, your division, your basic adding and subtracting. If you practice those things, you too can be fast with long division, and then you can just focus on the steps and not the little calculations inside of them. All right, one more. I'm super impressed if you got this question correct. If you haven't tried it already, or if you think you've learned something from these past few examples we've gone over, use it to try this one if you haven't done so already. This is a pretty more of a challenging question. 8 goes into 3, 0 times. You can put a 0 here, or you can just skip it and say 32. Go straight to 32. So for the sake of showing you don't have to put a 0 here, I'm just going to skip that space. 8 goes into 32. Let's check. Oh, it's actually a multiple of 8. So it goes into it 4 times evenly. Notice, I'm putting the 4 over the last digit of what we were checking. I am not putting the 4 here. That would be wrong, because then you're going to have a random gap that you might want to put a 0 in later, and that's going to mess you up. So the 4 goes over 32. 4 times 8 is 32. Subtract, you get 0. Bring down the 5. So remember, this is now the number that you're dividing by 8, and this number is just known as 5. 8 cannot fit into 5. It's too big. So 8 goes into 5 0 times. 0 times 8 is 0. Subtract, you get 5. And then you can bring down your 9. Now, by the way, I admit, I know you didn't have to technically put a 0 here. When you realized it was 0 times, you could have just brought down the 9 and put it here and gotten 59 and kept going. But I don't want to teach shortcuts like that to those people that are learning this for the first time. We're not going to talk about shortcuts. But if you have something you know that works for you, not a problem. All right, how many times does 8 go into 59? And you'll notice it can get up to 56. And let's see, how many times was that? That was 7 times. 7 times 8 is 56. So we subtract 59 minus 56, well, that's 3. So there's nothing else to drop down, so that's our remainder of 3. So the answer to this question was 407 times with a remainder of 3. Okay, if you've watched this entire video, man, you're dedicated, but I'm proud of you wanting to learn from your mistakes and wanting to learn how to do long division. This video, for what we're doing in 4th grade this year, is we're calling it Chapter 10. This was an overall thing for everything we basically talked about in Chapter 10. Some of the basic concepts of dividing. We talked about estimating. We've talked about rounding. But we more importantly talked about the steps of long division, and I gave you some practice problems to make sure you're doing it. Other than watching parts of this video for those steps again to get the practice, you'll notice it's very repetitive. Multiply, divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Every time. All right, well, take care, guys, and I hope this helped.